Welcome, YouTube friends and family, to today's Throwback Thursday edition of the Wellness Homesteader. So I'm going to try to speak up. I have a very soft voice, guys, and I know sometimes my video audio is not the best. I tried a microphone. It was a hard fail. But this morning, I am going to share something with you in case you're looking for something for a Christmas gift for one of your friends, family, or loved ones. And this year I wanted to do something special for my son in honor of my mom, his Grammy as he called them, and Ben, if you're watching, click off now. So I happened upon a company, wait, where did I put it? Called GB Engraving. And I will link their Etsy shop below. You all, they do all sorts of things. But one of the things they can do is they can take a recipe written in the person's handwriting, and we all know handwriting is a very personal thing, and they can engrave it onto a cutting board. Now, I've shared before, my son is an amazing cook, chef, whatever you want to call him. This is not his occupation, but he can cook for me any day. He totally spoils me when he comes and cooks because he is quite good. So Ben's favorite dish, well, there was a few of them, but one of his most favorite dishes that my mom made was a recipe called Kentucky pecan pie. Now, after my mom could no longer make pie, I decided one year, well, I'll make pie. And Ben's like, yeah, that's not Grammy's. And that's kind of stuck with me as a sweet memory. It certainly wasn't offensive. I just so happened, when I cleaned out my mom's home, to have a cookbook where a lot of the recipes are handwritten by her. So I took a picture, and you all, here you go. Kentucky pecan pie, all written perfectly, just like my mom did it. And I think this, it's kind of an off-centered cutting board. I think this will be more for show than for use, but I think that it will strike a chord with my son. So again, it was quite affordable, I thought, for such a personalized gift. It's not something I could make, so he'll be getting this for Christmas, but that's not what we're here for today. Today, we are going to be cooking a recipe from a really cool cookbook. It is Good Housekeeping's Cooking for the Family from 1967. Budget-conscious meals and recipes with an eye on flavor, adaptable to any size family with any family-sized appetite. So, y'all, look at this. Look at this. It is actually called, this is what we're going to make today. It's called a Crown Meatloaf. So, you know, fancy it up a little bit. Call it a Crown Meatloaf instead of just meatloaf and french fries. But as I was a child growing up, on Wednesday nights, we had church. We had prayer meeting in church. My mom was a Sunday school teacher, so she had like a meeting after church. So after going to school all day, my dad working all day, it was a long evening. So a lot of times I'd be doing my homework or whatsoever while I waited. But on Wednesday nights for many years, my mom would make fried hamburgers and deep fried crinkle cut French fries. So when I saw these French fries, and some of them are crinkle cut, I was like, I think I need to make that. So let me turn the camera down here. I think y'all might have to buy a lottery ticket if it's true, because I certainly tried. I think I might have everything out. So what I have in this bowl, and y'all, I can't speak to cutting this recipe down because it's honestly the first time I've ever made it. So that reminds me, I've preheated my oven to 400, and it says to make this in a 5.5 cup ring mold. I'm sorry, between the bread machine and the oven. Well, I don't have one of those, but I have a bundt pan. Now, this has been well loved. This is probably, I would say from the 80s, maybe earlier. So it does not say to grease the ring mold or anything like that, but I'm going to go ahead and spray it. I honestly think that there is enough liquid, oh, fuzzy there, not liquid, fat in the meat that it'll be a non-stick issue. But back to what I have in the bowl. So this lighter color meat is 8515 grass-fed organic. The little bit darker meat is ground sirloin, so it's a little bit leaner. I'm hoping it won't be a grease fest. So, first thing it says to do, and it does call for 2 pounds of ground chuck. Y'all priced hamburger lately? Like, this is my sacred hamburger, right? So, I'm just gonna, actually, I thawed this out last night in preparation. It's a little frozen in a couple spots, but I think it'll be okay. It's largely thawed. Okay, I'm just gonna kind of chop that up a little bit. And then it says, add breadcrumbs. Y'all, I didn't have any breadcrumbs. But the reason my bread machine was going was because I had the end of a homemade loaf of bread that I ran through the food processor, and I have 2 cups of fresh breadcrumbs here. And this was just a basic, oh, that smells good, a basic sandwich bread. So as you see, this is gonna make a big meatloaf. I am sure that using a smaller pan or a shorter diameter, you could absolutely, or not shorter diameter, yeah, smaller diameter. You could absolutely do this by halvesies. I'm gonna go ahead and make the whole thing because I don't mind leftovers, number 1. And number 2, I think it freezes well. So to this, it says to add 3/4 cup of onion and 1/4 cup of green pepper. So I have pre-chopped that. And this is from my garden. So that's kind of exciting. So give that a little bit of a fluff and a stir. I've always made meatloaf with my hands. How about you all? And I wash my hands very well before I started. Green peppers are still just very, okay, you don't want to do, you can't even see it. Okay, I have flung it everywhere. Next, we are going to add 2 eggs, beaten, and let's see if I can tip you down just a touch. So these are freshly washed eggs from my girls. So there's 1, 2, and y'all be happy to know, I can't remember if I've shared this, Fancy Ray no longer has a bare hiney, which is great, but she's also laying, so that's really great. Everybody has slowed down with the shorter days for sure. Okay, so I'm just going to distribute that over and kind of fluff it in. And I might have had just a bit more than 2 cups of breadcrumbs, but because they were fresh, they were pretty fluffy, so I didn't mash them down in the cup, but I think I'm pretty close. It's looking like meatloaf. All right, the next thing we're going to add is 1 teaspoon of horseradish. Oh, will that fit in there? Okay, sort of. So some of this I'm just gonna eyeball, y'all. I do like horseradish. If you don't, I'm sure you could leave it out, but meatloaf in general is kind of a bland dish. So I'm trying to make it exactly how the recipe says, but you can certainly kick it up a notch. I mean, meatloaf is meatloaf, right? All right, the next item is 2.5 teaspoons of salt, and I am going to use my Redland real salt, and there's probably 1.5 and 1. I'm not a big user of salt, but I do think the meatloaf will benefit from the salt. And then about a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. So I'm just gonna crank some in. Pepper makes everything better. If you don't like pepper, leave it out. This doesn't come out very fast, y'all. I'm not putting as much as what it looks like. Okay. The next item is a teaspoon of dry mustard, or mustard that you buy in the spice section. I am just flinging everywhere, y'all. So let me pick the top off of this and I'll show you what I'm using. I'm just using the Great Value, happens to be organic ground mustard. Will that fit in there? No. We'll use the handle into about a teaspoon, and this will also add quite a bit of flavor for your meatloaf since it is a blander dish. Next we need, to get the lid back on, a 1/4 cup of milk. So that's going to help moisten up those breadcrumbs. And then about a 1/4 cup of ketchup. And y'all, I am using my homemade fermented ketchup. That's about a 1/4 cup. And then it does call for a 1/2 cup of parsley. Now, I think that's a little excessive, to be honest with you. So I'm going to do about a 1/4 cup. And this is dried. It's not fresh. So it just says snipped parsley. It doesn't really specify, but I would think snipped would mean fresh. So generally in a dried herb, you want to use about 1/2 the amount you would of fresh. So let's get this all mixed together good. How simple was that, right? So I think the real treat of this is we are going to make a homemade sauce for the top. It calls it a barbecue sauce. Not sure that it's barbecue sauce like you think of from the grocery store, but it's a barbecue type sauce. It's a ketchup based sauce. And then I am going to air fry some crinkle cut french fries for the middle, and we're gonna see if we can come up with something that looks like this gorgeous picture right here. All right, next thing it says, and let me read this to you because I'm not sure how you would do this, right? It says, use the mixture to fill a greased, oh, it does say greased, okay, correction there. 5½ cup ring mold, keeping away from the edges. Y'all, I just realized you're all so crooked. You're leaning. Okay, so my first endeavor here is just going to be to get the mixture in the pan. And then we can kind of press it down and try to keep it away from the edges, although not sure how I'm going to do that. But we'll see. It looks like it's fairly moldable. Adding the milk really did make a big difference. And I will also share something with y'all. No disrespect to my mom. My mom's meatloaf was horrible. And she knew it. She would say, I'm not a good hand to make meatloaf. That's kind of a country-ish saying, but yeah, no. It was bland, it was tough, it was greasy, it was nasty. I hated it. Wow, that really filled it up. Okay, so now with my very clean hands, what I'm going to try to do here, guys, is just press it a little more towards the center. And try to make sure it's well compressed. You don't want big holes in your meatloaf, but also that it's even all the way around so you don't have one edge that's cooked well. Sorry, guys. A little fuzzy. Where are these fuzzies coming from? Couldn't be because I have a cat. So I'm just going to kind of concentrate on pulling it back a little bit from the edge, but you know, y'all, it's a meatloaf ring, you know, or a Crown Meatloaf roast. Okay. Okay, well that looks pretty yum. So next instructions are go into a preheated 400-degree oven for about 40 minutes. Y'all, this is a huge meatloaf. Now we're gonna make a topping, granted that, and cook it some additional time. I'm not sure that's gonna be enough time, so I can let you know what I think after 40 minutes has elapsed. I'll give you a little peek. All right, guys, stay tuned. One of the things I think is so neat and unique about vintage recipes is, and there are exceptions, but many times any kind of sauce or salad dressing that you're going to make, they expect you to make it from scratch. So we will not be opening a bottle of barbecue sauce. We are going to make what this recipe calls for. So step 1 says, in a saucepan, we want to take about 1.5 tablespoons of butter and melt that. Easy peasy, right? Now I've already washed my cutting board and my knife and everything, so instead of fresh onions, I'm going to use my homegrown freeze-dried onions, but it says about 3 tablespoons of minced onion and 1.5 tablespoons butter or margarine until tender, but not brown. Oop. And you try not to throw things on. So, do I have that on? Do I have that on? So get our butter melting here, and then we'll start adding all the ingredients. So when you think about a barbecue sauce, there are so many different styles of barbecue sauce. There's sweet, there's smoky, there's mustard based, there's vinegar based. I personally like a vinegar based more than a sweet, and I don't mind a smoky. So this seems to me to be somewhat of a savory vinegar base, although it does have a tiny bit of brown sugar in it. So this is taking forever to melt, but I'm going to saute my onions, and then I will bring you back and talk about the next ingredients for our homemade barbecue sauce. Okay, our onions are slightly brown. So to this, we're gonna add about 1/2 cup of ketchup. And you may notice my ketchup may look darker than store-bought ketchup. I think it's about all the same, although this is much tastier in my opinion. And it says 2 tablespoons of vinegar, but it doesn't say what kind of vinegar. So I say use what you like, and I'm just going to use some balsamic vinegar. You also need to add 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. Now I have some Splenda brown sugar, which has half the calories of sugar, that I don't want to go to waste. I don't use it very often, so I'm gonna add that. And y'all may notice I'm not measuring exactly. This will be close. All right, now it calls for 1 teaspoon of prepared mustard. Prepared mustard? Oh, I got out dry. Let me see if I have regular mustard. Oh yeah. Oops. So you could probably alter this a little bit to your taste. If you like a mustardy or a sweeter, I'm sure you could. Now it says 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire and a pinch of salt. And there is our barbecue sauce. It says to simmer it for 10 minutes. So I will set the timer, clean up my mess here, and then we still have about 25 minutes left on our first cook of meatloaf, and I'll bring you back at that time. Anyway, guys, I tasted this. It is delicious. Perfect. All right, y'all. I'm moving parts all of a sudden to this recipe. First thing we're going to do, it says increase your oven temperature to 450. Now, because I'm using my split oven, I'm not doing 450. I am going to do 425. And it says to put your frozen French fries in a single layer, you know, and bake them. Go ahead and put them in the oven. So I took a peek at the directions on this particular, these are golden crinkles, and it says 425 for 27 to 31 minutes. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pop that in the oven, and then our meatloaf is out. Y'all pray for me. I'm gonna grab it here, hold on. So surprisingly, 40 minutes was just perfect. I'm a little nervous that this is not gonna come out, but it says to drain the grease. Well, there really wasn't much. And then invert it and remove it. So let's see here, let me grab a knife. I did kind of go around the edge. So guys, this may be an epic fail because it appears to be stuck. I'm sure that won't hurt the pan, right? So let me work on this. Once I get it out, I'll bring you back. Hopefully it won't be in a million pieces, but it'll still eat if it is. Okay, I hope you all can laugh with me. This is certainly not the prettiest thing I've ever made on my channel. So learn from my mistake. Y'all grease that pan like it's the last thing in life you have to do and your life depends on it. But we got some nice caramelization of the top of the meatloaf. I kind of smooshed it into a more ring shape. I think that's why you have to make a sauce to cover the fact that it's really hard to get out the pan. So we do have our French fries in, and I am just going to kind of evenly distribute the barbecue sauce around the top to hide the ugly. But I think it'll make it absolutely delicious too. You know, sometimes you gotta hide the ugly. At least it's not like something I'm entering into a blue ribbon contest because I think I'd come in last place. But you know what, guys? Sometimes we forget in this day and age, and that's one of the reasons why I like making vintage recipes. And I'm sorry, the bread machine's gonna cut on right now. We forget how easy we have things nowadays. Non-stick pans and meatloaf mixes and things like that, if you choose to cook that way. So this doesn't look so bad. I mean, I don't think it'll win any prizes, and it doesn't look like the picture. Just saying. But we need to go back into the oven. It says for 15 minutes. So I'm going to give my French fries just a couple minutes because they're going to take a bit longer. I'll be scrubbing that pan till next week because they're really stuck, y'all. I'll clean up this mess and I will bring you back when we have it all assembled, and we'll do a taste test and see if all of this energy and effort was really worth it. But if nothing else, it's a fun recipe to try. All right, stay tuned. Well, before we get to the big reveal, I'll try to hide it. Y'all, I hope you'll excuse my hair. I was doing a little editing and I'm like, well, who needs a barometer when you have frizzy hair, right? It's kind of humid today. Y'all, I am pleasantly surprised. So, does it look like the picture? Well, no. It really doesn't. For one thing, my ketchup being fermented it's not super red, but I think it makes a cute little dish to serve to your family. But the real truth is in the taste. So I'm gonna try to cut a little piece here. It's beautifully done. The barbecue sauce smells absolutely amazing. I think that's gonna be the winner of it all. Ooh. Barbecue sauce, good. So let's just try a French fry with that sauce and see what we think. Wow. The sauce is nice and tomatoey, and that could be partly due to the kind of ketchup I used, but It's not overly sweet. Has a nice little vinegar back note with that balsamic. But let's take a look. So here's what our meatloaf looks like. You can see it's screaming hot, y'all. Let's take a taste. Try to get some of everything. Wow. Yo, this is really good. Surprisingly, I can taste the onion and the bell pepper more than in a standard meatloaf. Who knew, right? Let's try one more bite here. This is really good. This might be my new meatloaf recipe. I'm not baking it in a ring again. Just saying. And y'all, it may be the age of my pan that had, you know, something to do with it. Plus, it is so fluted, if you will. It's hard to get things not to stick in there. And I might need to spring for a new bundt pan, you know, because I think that might have been a wedding gift from 1981. So, what do you think about some of these vintage recipes? I enjoy Throwback Thursday. What really amazed me about this, and I made this exactly proportionately, well, okay, except for some of the spices. You know, the right amount of meat, the right amount of breadcrumbs, eggs, etc. And they said this serves 4 to 6, and it actually called for 2 10-ounce bags of French fries. So I would say that would be for a family with an extraordinarily hearty appetite, because to me, this serves way more than that. So I'm a little surprised at the serving suggestion, but it's quite tasty. So this is my breakfast this morning. It's about 10 o'clock here on, today is Tuesday. So you'll be seeing this on Thursday. As a reminder, guys, don't forget about the month of gratitude. Be filling up your jar with things every day you're thankful for. And so, let me think, if today is the 7th, you'll be seeing this on the 9th, it's do something nice for a neighbor day. So, that's what my calendar happens to say, so I'm gonna have to start thinking on that. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Do me a big favor, if you will, go ahead and smash that like button. Drop me a comment below. What do you think of the Crown Meatloaf? Would you go through all of those steps of making it straight up from scratch? You know, and you could even make your French fries from scratch as well. Since they're cooked separately and not in the meatloaf, you could cook them however they needed to be, even if you're cooking them from fresh potatoes. All right, guys, I will see you on Saturday, Lord willing. But until then, be healthy, be well, be blessed, and take care.